Cowboy rescued an Apache child. Then her stunning mother appeared and changed his fate. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the endless plains in shades of gold and orange. The wind whispered softly across the tall grass, carrying the faint scent of earth and wildflowers. Ethan rode his horse slowly, enjoying the quiet of the open land. He had been a cowboy for many years, traveling from one small town to another, but always returning to the solitude of the plains. Life had taught him to be careful, to trust few people, and to rely on himself. Yet there was a part of him that longed for connection, even if he did not fully understand it. Ethan's horse, a sturdy brown mare named Daisy, walked steadily under him. He loved this horse like family. Daisy had been with him through storms, harsh winters, and scorching summers. She was patient, loyal, and never questioned his moods. As they moved through a narrow canyon path, Ethan noticed the familiar signs of wildlife, tracks of deer, the distant flight of a hawk, and the rustle of smaller creatures in the underbrush. He paused to study the tracks, his experienced eyes scanning the ground carefully. Cowboys like him learned to read the land as if it were a living map, each mark telling a story of where life had passed before. It was then that he heard something unusual. At first he thought it might be a small animal, a rabbit perhaps, or the wind rustling the leaves in a peculiar way. But soon he realized it was a sound that no animal would make, a soft, trembling cry of a child. Ethan's heart tightened. He had been alone for so long that he was not used to hearing human vulnerability. The cry came again, and it was desperate, filled with fear and loneliness. Without hesitation, Ethan urged Daisy forward, following the sound through the rocky path. The canyon narrowed, the walls rising steeply on either side. Sunlight barely touched the ground here, and shadows danced eerily across the rocks. Ethan's pulse quickened, not with fear but with determination. Whoever was crying needed help, and he could not ignore it. The cries grew louder, more distinct. Finally, he rounded a bend and stopped abruptly. There, near a small, shallow stream, was a little girl. She was alone, sitting on a flat rock, her small hands clasped around her knees, her dark hair tangled and dusty. Her eyes were wide with fear and her clothes were torn and dirty. Ethan dismounted carefully, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. He did not want to scare her. "Hey there," he said gently. "It's okay. You're safe now." The little girl flinched but did not run. She stared at him, her eyes large and filled with both fear and curiosity. Ethan noticed that she had a small necklace made of beads and feathers, an intricate design that suggested she was part of a tribe, perhaps Apache. He had heard stories of the native tribes in these lands, their strength and resilience, and he could tell from her expression that she had been through something frightening. "Are you lost?" Ethan asked softly. The girl nodded slightly, her lip trembling. Ethan took a step closer but kept his distance, showing her he meant no harm. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Yana." Her voice was barely audible, but it had a clear, delicate quality, like a small bird singing in the morning. Ethan's chest tightened at the sound of it. He had never been around children much, and yet there was something about this little girl that stirred his heart. Ethan offered her some water from his canteen, and after a few moments of hesitation, she took it. He smiled reassuringly, hoping to calm her nerves. "There you go, Yana, you must be thirsty." She drank slowly, glancing at him cautiously. He noticed the dirt under her nails, the scratches on her arms, and the tiredness in her small frame. She had been alone for a long time, he realized, and it made his heart ache. "Do you know where your family is?" he asked gently. Yana shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. Ethan's mind raced. He had seen many hardships in his life, but seeing a child alone in the wilderness stirred something deep within him. He could not leave her here. He could not imagine what dangers she might face if she remained alone. Wild animals, harsh weather, or worse. "Come on," he said, kneeling slightly to be closer to her height. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Yana hesitated, then slowly allowed him to lift her onto Daisy's back in front of him. She clung tightly to him, her small arms wrapped around his waist. Ethan felt a strange mixture of awe and responsibility. He had never held a child before, and the weight of protecting her settled heavily on his shoulders. He whispered reassuring words as Daisy began to move, the horse's hooves clopping rhythmically against the rocky path. As they rode, Ethan tried to learn more about Ayana. She could not speak much, only small words and gestures, but he noticed how intelligent and observant she was. She watched everything with a quiet intensity, her eyes following every movement of the animals, the wind, and the changing light. Ethan admired her bravery. Despite being alone and frightened, she had survived this long. It made him respect her even more. The canyon slowly opened into a wide, sunlit plain. Ethan stopped to rest, letting Daisy graze while he sat beside Ayana on the soft grass. He offered her some dried meat and bread from his pack, and she ate cautiously, her trust in him growing little by little. He watched her face light up slightly as she tasted the food, and it made him smile. Even in such difficult circumstances, there was hope and resilience in this child. Ethan knew that finding her tribe would not be easy. He did not want to impose, and he did not want to cause trouble, but he also knew that leaving her alone was not an option. He had to help her, no matter the cost. He thought about the stories he had heard from other travelers, about Apache tribes and their deep connection to the land. He hoped that Ayana's family was still looking for her, and he vowed silently to reunite them if possible. As the day faded into evening, Ethan set up a small camp near the stream. He built a fire, careful to keep it small and safe, and offered Ayana a place to rest. She hesitated but eventually curled up on a blanket, exhausted from her journey and the fear she had endured. Ethan stayed awake, keeping watch, his mind filled with concern and determination. He realized that his life, which had been simple and solitary, was about to change in ways he could not yet imagine. That night, under a sky full of stars, Ethan reflected on the unexpected turn of events. He had always lived by himself, answering only to himself and the open land. Yet here was a small, fragile child depending on him completely. He felt a sense of purpose he had never felt before. Protecting Ayana was not just about survival, it was about hope, compassion, and doing what was right. As the fire crackled softly, Ethan promised silently to himself and to Ayana that he would keep her safe until she was reunited with her family. He did not yet know how he would manage it or what dangers lay ahead, but for the first time in many years, he felt that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The plains were quiet again, but within Ethan's heart, a new story was beginning. A story of courage, compassion, and the unexpected bonds that life sometimes brings. The stars shone brightly overhead, as if witnessing the start of something extraordinary. And somewhere in the darkness, the wind carried a promise that the path ahead, though uncertain, would lead to hope, connection, and the remarkable journey of a cowboy who discovered that helping a lost child could change his own life forever. The morning sun painted the plains in soft shades of pink and gold, and Ethan woke early, as he always did. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and earth. Yana was still asleep on the blanket he had laid out the night before, her small chest rising and falling steadily. Ethan watched her for a few moments, a soft smile forming on his rugged face. The little girl had survived the night, safe under his care, and that gave him a quiet sense of relief. He moved slowly, careful not to wake her, and went to tend to Daisy. The mare nickered softly as he approached, brushing her hand over her soft coat. Ethan had a routine in the mornings: check the horse, make a small fire for breakfast, and plan the day's route. Today, his thoughts were consumed with Ayana. How long had she been alone? How far had she traveled? And most importantly, how could he reunite her with her family? Yana stirred, blinking her large, dark eyes as she sat up. "Morning," she whispered softly, still cautious and sleepy. Ethan nodded, offering a warm smile. "Good morning, Ayanna." "Did you sleep well?" She nodded, though she still looked uncertain, as if unsure whether she could fully trust this stranger who had appeared in her life so suddenly. After breakfast, Ethan and Ayanna set out once more, following the faint tracks he had noticed near the stream the previous day. Ethan was patient, speaking to her in a gentle voice, explaining what he was doing. "We need to follow the land, Ayanna. Tracks like these tell us where people have been. Maybe they can lead us to your family." Ayanna listened closely, her small hands resting on her lap as she watched Ethan's movements. There was a quiet intelligence in her gaze, a sharpness that surprised him. She was young, yet she observed everything with remarkable attention. As they walked, Ethan began to teach Ayanna simple skills for surviving in the wild. He showed her how to recognize edible plants, how to find water, and how to move quietly without startling animals. She picked up the lessons quickly, her small hands imitating his movements with careful precision. Ethan marveled at her resilience. Despite everything she had endured, she had a bright spark of curiosity and determination. "See these tracks," Ethan said one afternoon, pointing to a set of footprints in the soft soil. "These are deer tracks. If we follow them, we might find food. Nature provides if we know where to look." Ayanna nodded eagerly, following his instructions as they tracked the deer. They found a small group of rabbits hiding in the tall grass, and Ethan showed her how to gather them carefully without causing harm, teaching her patience and respect for the land. During their journey, Ayanna began to open up more. She told Ethan small stories about her life, her village, and her family. Her words were simple, but they revealed a world full of love, tradition, and a deep connection to nature. Ethan listened intently, fascinated by her perspective. The stories painted a picture of a close-knit community, of laughter, games, and the warmth of family. He realized how much she had lost and how brave she was to survive alone in the harsh wilderness. Ethan began to feel something unfamiliar, a protective affection that went beyond simple responsibility. He found himself thinking about her when she was quiet, worrying about her safety, and imagining what it would be like if she were hurt. He had always lived a solitary life, valuing independence and self-reliance, but Ayanna's presence stirred emotions he had never fully acknowledged. One evening, as the sun dipped behind distant hills, Ethan and Ayanna set up camp near a small creek. The water reflected the fiery colors of the sky, creating a peaceful and magical scene. Ethan built a fire, and Ayanna helped him gather sticks and stones, her small hands working carefully. They cooked a simple meal together, sharing stories and laughter. For the first time in many years, Ethan felt a sense of home, even if it was temporary and fragile. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Ethan taught Ayanna to recognize them. "See that bright one?" he asked, pointing to a star near the horizon. "That's called Venus. It's always there, even when we can't see it. Remember it, Ayanna. No matter how lost you feel, there is always something constant to guide you." Ayanna's eyes sparkled as she listened, her fear momentarily replaced by wonder. Ethan realized that she was beginning to trust him, to see him not as a stranger, but as a protector and companion. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Ethan learned to anticipate her needs, and she learned to follow his guidance. They faced small challenges together, crossing streams, navigating rocky paths, and avoiding wild animals. Each obstacle was a lesson in trust, patience, and courage. Ayanna admired Ethan's strength, and Ethan admired her resilience. They were two very different souls, yet they complemented each other perfectly. One morning, they stumbled upon signs that they were close to Ayanna's village. Ethan noticed faint footprints that matched a child's, along with the remnants of a campfire. Ayanna's face lit up with hope, but she also looked hesitant. She had grown attached to Ethan, and the thought of leaving him behind made her small frame tense. Ethan noticed this and he knelt beside her. "Ayanna," he said gently, "your family is close. They must be worried about you, but I will stay with you as long as you need. You are not alone." Ayanna hugged him tightly, and Ethan felt a lump in his throat. This little girl, so small and vulnerable, had changed something in him that he did not fully understand. He realized that life was more than solitude and survival. It was about connection, compassion, and the unexpected ways people could touch your heart. That afternoon, as they approached the edge of a wooded area, Ethan stopped. In the distance, he could see figures moving carefully among the trees. He held Ayanna close, speaking softly. "Stay calm. We'll see who they are and everything will be all right." Ayanna clung to him, her trust in him unwavering. Ethan felt a mix of anticipation and caution. He did not know whether these figures would be friendly or hostile, but he was determined to protect the little girl who had come to mean so much to him. The figures drew closer, and Ethan realized that they were Apache warriors. Their movements were careful and deliberate, and their eyes were alert. Ethan's heart raced, but he stood his ground, signaling with a gentle hand for Ayanna to remain calm. The leader of the group, a tall woman with striking features, stepped forward. There was a sense of authority and strength in her presence that commanded respect. Ethan felt both awe and apprehension. The woman's eyes softened when she saw Ayanna. She knelt, opening her arms. "Ayanna," she called, her voice filled with relief and emotion. The little girl ran into her mother's embrace, tears streaming down her face. Ethan watched silently, feeling a complex mixture of happiness, relief, and sadness. He had done what he came to do. He had protected her. But now the bond they had formed faced an inevitable change. Ayanna's mother looked at Ethan with gratitude and curiosity. Ethan bowed slightly, respecting her presence. "She's safe," he said simply. "I found her yesterday and I've been keeping her safe until we could find you." The woman nodded, her eyes meeting his with a mix of respect and acknowledgement. There was no anger, no blame, only understanding. Ethan realized that this encounter, which had begun as a chance meeting, was shaping the course of all their lives. As the sun set, painting the sky in warm hues, Ethan stood beside the mother and child, feeling a sense of fulfillment. He had rescued Ayanna, but he had also discovered something profound about himself. The power of compassion, the strength of trust, and the unexpected bonds that life could create. He knew that his journey with Ayanna was not over, but it had already changed him in ways he could never have imagined. For the first time in many years, Ethan felt that life held possibilities beyond the solitude he had cherished. Ayanna's presence had awakened emotions he had long buried, and her family's arrival offered a glimpse of a future he had never dared to envision. The plains were quiet again, but in Ethan's heart, a story of courage, connection, and the unexpected gifts of life was beginning to unfold. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, spreading warm light across the plains and the edges of the forest. Ethan stood quietly near the small creek, his eyes following Ayanna as she played near the water's edge. She laughed softly, her small hands splashing the cool water, completely unaware of the worries she had carried the day before. Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of calm and satisfaction. He had kept her safe, and for now she could simply be a child again, free from fear. But as he watched her, he felt a shift in the air, a presence that was both commanding and gentle. From among the trees, a figure stepped forward, moving with a grace and confidence that immediately caught his attention. Ethan instinctively put himself slightly between the figure and Ayanna, unsure of how this newcomer would react. The figure emerged fully, revealing a woman of striking beauty and strength. Her hair, long and dark, framed a face both fierce and compassionate. Her eyes, deep and intelligent, seemed to look straight into Ethan's soul. It was Kaylani, Ayanna's mother. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Ayanna froze mid-laugh, her eyes wide with recognition and relief. She ran toward her mother, her small arms stretching out as she called her name. Kehlani dropped to her knees, opening her arms and hugged Ayanna tightly. The bond between mother and daughter was immediate, intense, and unbreakable. Ethan watched silently, a mix of awe, admiration, and something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Kehlani's eyes then turned toward him. There was a moment of hesitation, a pause in which she seemed to study him, weighing his presence. Ethan felt the weight of her gaze, but he did not flinch. He knew he had nothing to hide. "She's safe," he said simply. "I found her yesterday, alone in the canyon. I've been keeping her safe until I could find you." Kehlani's expression softened slightly, but she remained cautious. "You found her?" she asked, her voice steady but gentle. "You helped her?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, I made sure she had food, water, and shelter. I watched over her all night." "She's strong, but she needed someone to protect her." Kehlani studied him for a long moment, and then she nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said. "You've done something few would do. You've protected what is most precious to me." Ayanna stayed close to her mother but glanced back at Ethan, a small smile on her face. She had grown attached to him during their journey, and the thought of leaving his side made her pause. Ethan felt a gentle tug in his heart. He had cared for this child deeply, and her trust in him had awakened feelings he had never experienced before. He realized that he did not just want to return her to safety. He wanted to be a part of her life, in some way he could not yet define. Kehlani invited Ethan to sit by their small camp. They spoke cautiously at first, their conversation polite and measured. She asked about the journey, about how he had found Ayanna, and about the challenges he had faced. Ethan spoke honestly, describing the terrain, the wildlife, and how he had ensured Ayanna's safety. Kehlani listened attentively, her eyes never leaving his, and Ethan began to see a warmth beneath her cautious exterior, a compassion that mirrored his own. Over the next few hours, Ethan and Kehlani shared small tasks around the camp. Ethan helped repair some of the children's toys, while Kehlani showed him how to prepare traditional herbs for food and medicine. They worked side by side, their movements gradually becoming more natural and comfortable. Each small act built a bridge of trust between them. Ethan noticed how Kehlani treated her people and the land, with respect, patience, and an unwavering sense of responsibility. He found himself admiring her strength, her wisdom, and the quiet authority she carried effortlessly. As the day progressed, Ayanna grew more relaxed, playing between them and laughing freely. It was a sound that Ethan had not realized he had missed so much. Her laughter was infectious, and even Kehlani smiled, her eyes lighting up with joy. Ethan felt a deep sense of contentment. He realized that this day marked a turning point, not just for Ayanna but for himself. The solitude he had once cherished seemed distant now, replaced by the warmth of human connection and the possibility of something more. Ethan and Kehlani began to talk about life beyond survival, stories of family, culture, and tradition. Kehlani shared tales of her childhood, the lessons taught by elders, and the importance of community. Ethan listened with genuine interest, feeling a growing respect for the depth of her knowledge and the richness of her heritage. In turn, he spoke of his life on the plains, his travels, and the lessons he had learned from living close to nature. Their conversations flowed naturally, filled with curiosity, admiration, and a shared sense of purpose. By evening, the campfire glowed warmly, casting flickering shadows across their faces. Ethan noticed a subtle change in Kehlani's demeanor. She was no longer simply cautious. She was beginning to see him as more than a stranger. She had witnessed his courage, his compassion, and his respect for her daughter. There was a silent acknowledgement forming between them, a mutual understanding that transcended words. Ethan felt the same. He realized that Kehlani was not just Ayanna's mother. She was a remarkable woman in her own right. Her presence challenged him, inspired him, and awakened feelings he had long buried. He found himself wanting to be near her, to learn from her, and perhaps, in time, to share his life with her. It was a thought both thrilling and frightening, for Ethan had always been a man of solitude. Yet, with Kelani, solitude no longer seemed necessary or desirable. As night fell and the stars appeared above, Ethan and Kelani sat quietly by the fire. Gianna was asleep, tucked safely into a blanket. The quiet of the plains surrounded them, and for a moment there was nothing but the crackle of fire and the soft whisper of the wind. Ethan felt a sense of peace he had never known. He understood now that fate had brought him here, not just to protect Ayana, but to meet Kelani, to form connections that would change his life forever. Kelani broke the silence. "You are different from other men I have known," she said softly. "You carry strength, yes, but also kindness. You have a rare understanding of what is truly important." Ethan met her gaze, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "I've learned that life is more than survival," he said quietly. "It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves, about trust, and about compassion. Iana reminded me of that." Kelani nodded, a gentle smile on her face. "And you reminded me that help can come from unexpected places. Sometimes, strangers bring more than assistance. They bring lessons, hope, and even friendship." Ethan's heart swelled with a mix of humility and gratitude. He realized that this encounter, which had begun as a chance meeting, was shaping the course of his life in ways he had never imagined. Over the next few days, Ethan remained with Kelani and Ayana, helping with daily chores, sharing stories, and learning the ways of her community. He observed the tribe's traditions, the respect they showed for the land, and the close bonds between members. Ethan felt both admiration and a growing sense of belonging. He realized that he had found more than he ever expected: friendship, trust, and the possibility of love. Gianna thrived in this environment, her laughter filling the air and her eyes shining with joy. She clung to both Ethan and her mother, bridging the worlds between them. Ethan felt a protective pride, knowing that he had played a part in reuniting them, and a quiet hope that perhaps, in time, he could become part of their family. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of red and gold, Kelani approached Ethan. "You've done more than anyone could have asked," she said softly. "Ayana is safe, happy, and loved. And you've changed more than just her life. You've shown me courage, kindness, and heart. For that I am grateful." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Words failed him, but he understood the meaning behind her gaze. There was respect, appreciation, and perhaps the faintest hint of something deeper. That night, as he lay beneath the stars, Ethan reflected on the past few days. The journey with Ayana had been unexpected, challenging, and transformative. And now, with Kelani's presence, his life was shifting in ways he had never imagined. He realized that fate had a way of leading people to one another, often through trials and challenges, and he felt both humbled and exhilarated by the path ahead. For the first time in many years, Ethan allowed himself to imagine a future not defined by solitude, but by connection, love, and purpose. He understood that the bond he shared with Ayana was permanent, and the bond forming with Kelani had the potential to change his life forever. The plains were quiet, but in Ethan's heart, a new chapter had begun, one of hope, trust, and the remarkable possibility of love and family. The morning light broke softly across the plains, casting long shadows over the campsite where Ethan, Kelani, and Ayana had spent the night. The fire from the previous evening had burned low, leaving glowing embers that slowly died in the cool morning air. Birds began to sing, and the rustle of leaves in the breeze created a gentle soundtrack to a day that promised new beginnings. Ethan stirred first, as he always did, moving quietly so as not to wake Ayana. He went to Daisy, brushing her soft mane and checking that she was ready for the day. The mare nickered softly at his touch, her calm presence a reminder that, despite everything that had happened, life on the plains continued with steady, dependable rhythm. Ethan had come to value this rhythm. It had taught him patience, observation, and resilience. But now, a new kind of lesson awaited him, one shaped by human connection. Gianna soon woke, her dark eyes bright with energy and curiosity. She rushed to Kaylani, who was already preparing a small breakfast by the fire. The bond between mother and daughter was unmistakable, a connection of love and trust that radiated through the morning. Yet even in this joyful reunion there was a place for Ethan. He was no longer just a stranger or a helper. He had become a presence in their lives, one that could not be ignored. Kaylani noticed Ethan watching, and she smiled softly. "Good morning," she said, her voice warm but measured. "You stayed with her through the night, thank you again." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of quiet pride. "It was nothing," he replied simply. "I was happy to do it." "She is brave and strong, but every child needs guidance and protection." Kaylani's eyes softened. She could see his sincerity, the quiet strength in his words, and the careful way he had cared for her daughter. After breakfast, Kaylani invited Ethan to accompany them as they moved toward the heart of her community. She wanted him to see where Ayana belonged and understand the traditions and way of life that shaped her. Ethan agreed, curious and eager to learn. He knew that earning her trust fully required understanding, respect, and patience. He also felt a growing desire to be part of something larger than himself, to belong in a world that had always seemed distant and separate. As they walked, Kaylani explained the customs of her people. She spoke of the importance of family, the respect for the land, and the responsibilities each member carried for the well-being of the group. Ethan listened intently, absorbing every word, fascinated by the depth of knowledge and the balance between strength and compassion in her culture. He realized that the lessons she shared were not just for survival, they were lessons in life, in living with integrity, honor, and heart. The path they followed wound through tall grass, shaded groves, and rocky hills. Ethan noticed the careful way Kaylani moved, always aware of her surroundings, always mindful of Gianna. Her attentiveness reminded him of the care he had taken when protecting the little girl alone. But now there was an added layer. He saw how the mother guided her child with love and patience, how she balanced authority with understanding. It was a skill he admired deeply and hoped to learn from. As they approached the village, Ethan saw the Apache people going about their daily routines. Children played near the edge of the camp, women prepared food, and men tended to livestock or crafted tools. There was a rhythm and harmony in their movements that spoke of generations of knowledge passed down with care. Ethan felt both awe and humility. He was an outsider, yet he sensed that his presence mattered, that he had a role to play in the life of this community. Kaylani introduced Ethan to a few key members of the tribe. At first, their expressions were cautious, observing him closely. But as Kaylani spoke of his courage and the care he had shown Ayana, their attitudes softened. Respect grew in their eyes, not only for his actions, but for the honesty and humility he carried. Ethan realized that trust was earned through deeds, not words, and he felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that his efforts had made a meaningful difference. Over the following days, Ethan continued to assist the tribe in small ways. He helped repair fences, gather firewood, and assist with the animals. Kaylani watched him closely, noting how he approached each task with care and respect. She saw that his strength was matched by patience, that his independence did not come with arrogance, and that he genuinely cared for her daughter and for the well-being of the people around him. Ethan also took time to teach Ayana small lessons that complemented what her mother had already shown her. They practiced tracking animals, observing the sky, and reading signs in nature. He taught her to move quietly, to notice subtle changes in her surroundings, and to respect every living thing. Gianna absorbed these lessons eagerly, delighting in the challenge and the bond they shared. Ethan felt a profound pride watching her grow stronger, braver, and more confident each day. One afternoon, a sudden storm approached, dark clouds rolling in over the plains. Wind swept across the village, rustling the trees and sending the animals into mild panic. Kelani moved quickly, organizing the people and securing the camp. Ethan helped, guiding children to safety, tying down supplies and offering strength where it was needed most. The storm passed, leaving the village unharmed, but it revealed something essential. In moments of challenge, Ethan's courage and calm were undeniable. Kelani's eyes met his, and in that glance, a new level of trust and admiration was formed. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, Ethan and Kelani sat by the fire, exhausted but satisfied. Iana was curled up between them, her small body warm and content. Ethan realized that his life, once solitary and predictable, had changed completely. He was no longer just a traveler passing through. He was part of something living, vibrant, and meaningful. The bond he shared with Kelani was growing steadily, built on mutual respect, shared challenges, and an unspoken connection that neither of them could deny. Kelani spoke softly, breaking the quiet. "You have become more than a friend," she said, her voice carrying weight and sincerity. "You have proven your character, your patience, and your heart. For that I am grateful." Ethan met her gaze, feeling a warmth spread through him that he had never experienced before. "It is easy to care for someone like Iana," he replied quietly, "and to earn your trust, it is an honor. I only wish to help and perhaps to belong if you will allow it." Kelani's eyes softened, and a faint smile curved her lips. "Belonging is not given lightly," she said. "It must be earned through respect, courage, and care. You have shown all of these things, Ethan. Time will tell what the future holds, but your place here is no longer just temporary." Ethan felt his heart lift at her words. He realized that the path ahead was uncertain, yet full of possibility. He had found purpose, connection, and perhaps even love in the most unexpected way. Over the next few days, Ethan continued to integrate into the community. He shared stories of his travels, taught practical skills, and learned the customs and traditions of the tribe. Each interaction strengthened the bonds he had begun to form, and he noticed how Kelani observed him, not just as a protector of her daughter, but as someone who could be trusted, respected, and perhaps even cherished. One evening, as the sky turned deep purple and the stars began to appear, Kelani invited Ethan to join her on a small walk outside the village. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wild grass and distant flowers. They walked in silence at first, side by side, feeling the quiet companionship that had grown between them. Finally, Kelani spoke. "Ethan, you have changed our lives," she said softly. "Iana is safe, happy, and full of hope because of you. And I am beginning to see a life beyond caution, beyond solitude because of you." Ethan stopped, feeling the weight of her words. He looked at her, seeing not just the mother of the child he had protected, but a woman of remarkable strength, wisdom, and heart. "Kelani," he said carefully, "I never expected this. I never expected to find family or trust or something so real, but now that I have, I cannot imagine letting it go." Kelani reached out, touching his arm lightly. "The future is uncertain," she said. "But courage and heart have brought you here. I believe in both. Let us see where this path leads together." Ethan nodded, a sense of peace and purpose filling him. For the first time in his life, he felt that he had found not just a place to rest, but a home, and not just companionship, but a chance for love and belonging. As they returned to the camp, Iana ran toward them, her laughter ringing in the cool night air. Ethan lifted her in his arms, spinning her gently, feeling the warmth of life, hope, and family. Kelani watched, her eyes reflecting pride and affection. Ethan realized that the journey had changed him completely. From a lone cowboy wandering the plains, he had become a protector, a teacher, and a trusted presence in a family he had never expected to find. The stars shone brightly above, casting their silver light on the plains and the small fire that flickered warmly below. Ethan, Kaylani, and Ayanna sat together, a family in the making, bound by trust, courage, and the shared journey that had brought them together. Ethan knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, but for the first time he felt ready to face it, not alone but together with those who mattered most. The morning sun rose over the plains, casting a golden glow across the village. Birds chirped softly, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. For Ethan, the day felt different from any other he had ever experienced. He no longer wandered alone across the vast plains. He now had purpose, connection, and a sense of belonging that he had never imagined possible. The journey that had begun with a single, desperate cry of a child had transformed his life completely. Ayanna ran through the camp, her laughter bright and free, as if the days of fear and solitude had never existed. She had grown stronger, braver, and more confident under Ethan's guidance and her mother's loving care. Her presence was a constant reminder to Ethan of why he had acted without hesitation to protect her in the canyon. Every smile, every joyful giggle, made him feel that his actions had meaning far beyond his own survival. Kaylani walked beside Ethan, her eyes warm and watchful as she observed her daughter. She had come to trust him fully, not only because of his courage but because of the deep respect he had shown for her, her daughter, and her people. Over the past days, they had faced small challenges together, gathering food, tending to the animals, helping children learn, and defending the village from minor dangers. Each challenge had strengthened their bond and revealed the depth of Ethan's character. Ethan noticed how Kaylani moved among her people with ease and authority, guiding them with wisdom and care. He admired her strength, but more than that, he admired the gentle compassion that accompanied it. He realized that her courage did not come from force or fear, but from a profound understanding of responsibility and love. This realization made him feel both humbled and inspired, and he knew that he wanted to be more than a helper. He wanted to be a partner, someone worthy of trust and respect. The day unfolded with a quiet rhythm. Ethan assisted with chores, helped teach Ayanna about the land, and even learned a few of the traditions Kaylani shared. He observed how her people worked together in harmony, each person contributing to the well-being of the community. It was a world built on cooperation, trust, and care, and Ethan felt honored to witness it. Slowly, he felt himself becoming part of it, not as an outsider but as someone who belonged. During a quiet moment, Kaylani approached him. "Ethan," she said softly, "you have changed our lives just as we have changed yours. Ayanna is safe, happy, and thriving because of you. And I see that you carry strength, kindness, and heart. You have become more than a stranger. You have become someone I trust, someone I respect, and someone I care about deeply." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Her words were honest, unguarded, and filled with emotion. He had never imagined hearing such a thing from anyone, and yet here it was, a gift more valuable than anything he had known. "I never expected this," Ethan admitted quietly. "I thought my life would always be alone, traveling, surviving, moving from place to place. But now I see that there is more to life than solitude. There is connection, love, and family. I want to be part of that if you will allow me." Kaylani smiled, her eyes softening. "Time will tell, Ethan," she said. "But you have proven yourself through your actions, your heart, and your courage. Your place here is no longer temporary. It is real, and it matters." Ayanna ran toward them, her small hands reaching for both Ethan and her mother. "Look, Papa," she exclaimed, using the word she had begun to call him. Ethan's heart swelled at her trust and affection. He lifted her into his arms, spinning her gently, feeling the warmth of family that he had never experienced before. Kaylani watched with pride, her smile reflecting the joy and hope that Ethan had brought into their lives. As the day passed, Ethan found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the moment he first heard Ayana's cries in the canyon, the fear in her eyes, and the responsibility he had felt in that instant. That single act of compassion had set off a chain of events that reshaped his life. He realized that sometimes the smallest decisions, guided by kindness and courage, could change everything. The village elders invited Ethan to join them in a small ceremony to honor the reunion of Ayana with her family and to recognize his role in protecting her. They spoke of bravery, selflessness, and the importance of community. Ethan listened, humbled by their words. He had never sought recognition, yet he felt a quiet pride in knowing that his actions had made a difference, not just for one child, but for an entire family and community. In the days that followed, Ethan continued to integrate fully into the village. He learned the traditions, shared stories of his travels, and helped teach children practical skills for survival. He observed the balance between strength and compassion in Kelani's guidance and sought to emulate it in his own way. Each day, he felt more confident in his role, more connected to the people around him, and more aware of the joy that comes from being part of something larger than oneself. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Kelani walked together to the edge of a hill overlooking the plains. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple, and the wind carried a gentle coolness. They stood side by side, looking out at the vast land that had once been Ethan's world of solitude. Now, it was a land of connection, of family, and of possibilities. Kelani spoke softly, breaking the silence. "Ethan, you have proven yourself worthy of trust, respect, and love. The path you have walked with Ayana and me has not been easy, but it has shown your true character. I believe that our lives are forever changed because of the choices we made and the hearts we opened to one another." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight and truth of her words. "I have learned so much," he said, "about courage, compassion, and the importance of family. I never imagined that a chance encounter could lead to this, a life filled with purpose, love, and hope." Gianna ran up to them, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers she had gathered along the way. She handed the flowers to Ethan and Kelani, her eyes shining with joy. "For you," she said simply, "for keeping me safe and for loving me." Ethan knelt to hug her, feeling the warmth of her small body and the bond that had grown between them. Kelani stood close, her hand resting lightly on Ethan's shoulder, a gesture of trust, support, and shared life. Ethan realized that the plains, which had once been a symbol of isolation, now symbolized freedom, growth, and the possibilities of life connected to others. He understood that family was not just blood, it was trust, care, and shared experiences. Kelani and Ayana had opened his heart in ways he had never imagined possible, and he was determined to honor that bond every day of his life. As night fell, the village gathered around a fire. Ethan, Kelani, and Ayana sat together at the center, a family united by circumstance, courage, and choice. The elders spoke of the importance of bravery, love, and the responsibility to care for one another. Ethan listened, feeling a deep sense of belonging. He had come to the plains as a solitary cowboy, but he would remain as part of a family, a community, and a story far larger than himself. Ethan looked at Kelani, her face illuminated by the firelight. "I never imagined that saving a child could change my life so completely," he said softly. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the flames and something deeper. "Sometimes," she replied, "the smallest acts of courage create the greatest transformations. You have given us safety, trust, and hope, and in return, life has given you a family, a purpose, and love." The stars appeared above, glittering like diamonds in the night sky. Ethan, Kelani, and Ayana sat together, feeling the quiet peace of the plains and the certainty that they were no longer alone. Ethan's life had been transformed from solitude to connection, from wandering to belonging. The little girl he had rescued had become the bridge to a future he had never dared to imagine, and her mother had become the partner who would shape that future with him. In the days and weeks that followed, Ethan fully embraced his new life. He helped teach the village children, guided by both Kehlani and the elders. He continued to explore the plains, not as a lonely cowboy, but as a protector, teacher, and family member. He learned more about Kehlani's culture, traditions, and wisdom, and he shared his own experiences, creating a bridge between two worlds. Iyanna thrived in this new life, her laughter and energy filling the village with joy. She had found safety, love, and belonging, and in turn, she gave Ethan and Kehlani a daily reminder of hope and resilience. Ethan's heart was full, his mind peaceful, and his spirit alive with the knowledge that he had made a lasting difference in the lives of those he cared about. As the sun set on the horizon one evening, Ethan, Kehlani, and Iyanna stood together on a hill overlooking the plains. The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of wildflowers and the promise of new beginnings. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the two people he loved most and the profound peace of a life transformed. He realized that fate had led him here, not by accident but by choice, courage, and heart. In that moment, Ethan understood the full meaning of his journey. He had started as a solitary cowboy, wandering the plains with no one to depend on and no one depending on him. He had followed the cries of a lost child, acted with compassion, and in doing so he had found a family, love, and a life of purpose. The plains, once a symbol of isolation, had become a symbol of hope, connection, and the enduring power of courage and kindness. Ethan held Iyanna close and looked at Kehlani, a smile spreading across his face. Together they watched the sun dip below the horizon, knowing that whatever challenges the future might bring, they would face them together, as a family, united by trust, love, and the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. And in that quiet, golden light, Ethan finally felt at home.